Hey guys, this is Richard with SmartGuard Shutters. In this video we're going to be showing you how to install our Hurricane accordion shutters on a house. So this is going to be a fairly straightforward install in this window. There is no obstacles or anything around it. So what you're going to want to do first is lay out the shutters at the window that you're going to be installing. We do label all of the openings. So this one says the first number is going to be your job number, or our job number, and this is going to be opening 3 of 5. And then you're going to want to make sure that the tracks match up. So this is opening number 3 as well. So we got the tracks, the top and bottom wall tracks for the shutters, and then the stack of the accordions. So other tools that you're going to be needing for this job, if you're drilling into concrete, are going to be a concrete drill. This is a DeWalt rotary hammer drill with a 3/16 bit, and then a impact gun. That one has a 5/16 hex driver, and we're going to be using on this house 2 1/4 inch, 1/4 by 2 1/4 Tapcons. So I'm going to get everything broken free and unwrapped, and we'll show you the first steps on installing this. So now that we have everything cut open, we're going to be looking at the left and right stacking, and I have these turned on its backside. We're going to be measuring the height of the accordion stack, and when you measure it, we're going to be measuring from the bottom of this little flange on the outside to the other, and we'll get that measurement now. So measure that across. We're at 43.5 inches. So remember that number, take 43.5 inches and then go to the window. We're going to measure the window opening size, so from the inside to right here, we're at 38.5. So if we take those two numbers and subtract, we're going to get a difference of 5 inches. So 5 inches are going to be the overlap. So if we go 2.5 inches down from the bottom, and then 2.5 inches up from the top, that will make sure that our accordion shutter is perfectly centered up and down. So we're going to go on the top of the window here, and we're going to measure up 2.5 inches and make a mark right there, indicating that is going to be our point of where we're going to be hanging the top track. So I'm going to measure up 2.5 inches and just take a pencil and just mark that right now. Alright, now we have the mark on the top of the window 2.5 inches up. Now we're going to find the center. So if I measure from the inside over, we're at approximately 36.5 inches in width. And now we're going to make a mark at the center point of 36.5, which in this case is going to be 18.25. So I'm going to make a mark at 18.25 and 2.5 inches up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I drew a vertical line right here. This is going to be our center point of the window, and our height being 2.5 inches up, this is going to be where our center of the top track is going to be. So now, next step is we're going to go over to the tracks. Now, the top and bottom tracks are going to be most likely the same as far as the build-out goes. This window is at least. If your top and bottom tracks are different for whatever reason, just make sure you're using the proper track on this. So this is our top track, or it could be the bottom one, but we're going to take a tape and measure across, and on the back side we're going to mark the center of this. So we're at basically 3 foot 10 inches on this, 46 inches. We're going to go into the center on that, which is going to be 23 inches. And I'm going to take a pencil and mark at the center at 23 inches. So now we have the center of the accordion track marked, and then we have the spot right here where we're going to be lining it up to. So the part that we're going to be lining up is the backside of the flange. So as you can see in the video here, this just so happened to line up almost with the drill hole, but don't go by the center hole, it could be off a little bit. And we're going to take this, line it up with our mark that we made, and now we know that this track is centered and at the proper height that we're going to need. So at this point I'm going to switch to a Sharpie, because I want something that's a little bit more permanent and I can see better. So now that we have the track in place, centered and at the right height, we're going to take a Sharpie and mark out this center hole, so we know where we're going to be drilling out our first hole. And as you can see, we should have the same amount of overlap on the left and the right side. So I'm going to take a Sharpie and go ahead and mark this center hole now. So we got our center hole marked now. One thing I do want to mention also is we centered the top track with the window. This is only going to work if your stacking on your opening is a 50-50 split. So if there is an obstacle on one side of the opening causing you to need to be able to shift the shutter over, we do like a 20-80% stacking, for example, so you might have 20% on one side and 80% on the other. If you do this and you center your track, it's not going to line up perfectly on your window. So this step that I just showed you is only if your stacking is a 50-50 stack, which is the case for this window. If it is not 50-50, then you'll probably have to just build the shutter and lift it up to the window and go from there on the install. So right now we have the top track marked. We're going to go ahead and drill that out with a 3/16 SDS bit and get our first screw hole in for the top track. Okay, so now I went ahead and installed the screw in the center of the track, and I didn't tighten it up all the way. I want to be able to still make some adjustments on this so I can make sure it's level. Also, when you're installing your top track, whatever track that you use to mark out for the center hole, make sure that you use the exact same track. Even though that the bottom one on this opening is the same width, the holes that are drilled out could be slightly off compared to the other one. So we want to make sure that we're using the same track that we use to mark out the holes with, that we're using to install it on the top. So now that we have the top one in there, we're going to throw a level on here. We're going to level this track, which it is dead level right now. And at this point, we can take our impact and go ahead and tighten down this center screw. Snugging that up. And make sure that when you tightened it up, the bubble didn't move. So now that we're tight, we're centered and level, we can go ahead and drill out these other holes and get the top track fully mounted. All right, so now that we have the top track all screwed off and level, the next step is going to be hanging the left and right sides. Now, the wheels are always going to be facing towards the top and sliding in, and this orientation with the starter strip is going to be facing towards the back. So on this orientation here, this is going to go into the left side of the opening, and then the other track is going to be just completely opposite of that. So the other track is going to be just like this. So that's going to be our right track. So we're going to take this stack and make sure that the wheels are in line. Turn them so they're all in line. This only has one wheel on this side, but we're going to lift it up into the opening and then slide the wheels into the back of the track, just like that. One thing that I like to do is go ahead and open up the shutter a little bit just to keep it from falling out. So this only has one wheel on it, so it's a little bit more kind of flopping back and forth, but since this one has two wheels, it's going to hold up a little bit better. So we got the wheels aligned. We're going to slide on the side tracks. And like I said, I open them up just to make sure that they don't fall out on you. And then the next step, we're going to take this screw, which is provided, and they're going to go through the outside into the holes that are lined up on the inside of the track. So we're going to go and send these guys in. One thing I do like to do also as a tip is to turn the ladder, pull this back a little bit so you can see where you're lining up your screws to. So when I go to put this screw in, it's going to be lining up with this little slot here. You can see that. And then I just kind of take the first screw and just kind of spin it in to get it started, and then take my next screw and do the same thing in the back. But if you leave this little gap right here, it'll help you line them up a little bit easier. Let's take our back screw and there we go. That one's in now, and we'll go ahead and tighten both of these up now. So one thing I like to do is not send the screws all the way in on the side starters until you get all of it together. And this is going to allow you to give you a little bit of a flexibility when you're building the shutter, so it's not going to be so tight. So we're going to leave these screws backed off a little bit until we get everything else anchored on the bottom, all of your screws on the bottom and both sides on. And then also when you go to tighten these up, make sure to not over tighten them or you have the potential of bending this little flange. So we just snug it up just barely once we have everything all assembled. So we're going to get the screws in on this side, on the top, and we'll show you what the next step is. All right, the left and right sides are on. Now the next step is to put on the bottom track. So we're going to take our bottom track, make sure that the screw holes are facing towards the wall, and these are going to slide in on the back of the pins. So this is easier if they're closed, so if you can hold that there for me. So we're going to slide in like that, and on the other side just slide in like so. And then we're going to go and take our same screws that we did on the top and line them up into the holes on the bottom and tighten that up. All right, so we got the bottom track on and the side screws in. Next thing we're going to do is to make sure that it's plumb. So I'm going to be using just a little 2-foot level on this, and we're going to be putting the level on the side, make sure it's nice and straight. One thing to make sure that you don't do is if your level is too low and you accidentally have that on that screw, it's going to make your shutter not plumb. So that's why we're using the shorter one here so it doesn't hit against the screws. So we'll find to where it's nice and straight right there. And now that it's straight, we'll go ahead and drill out one of the holes on the bottom. Now we don't need the level on the side anymore. That is plumb. We are centered on the window and finished drilling out the other holes on the bottom. So now that everything is all screwed off, we're going to make sure that we go back and tighten the screws on the side, snug them up from where we left them loose. And if you have a keyed shutter, we're going to pop this cap off, put your key in, and go ahead and unlock it at this time. And pull it across, test for functionality, make sure there's no binding. That one pulls pretty good. And we'll do the same thing over here. Perfect. And at this point, we're going to make sure that the shutter locks. So we're going to put the centers together and lock it. We're good there. And then we are going to drill out the holes for our locking pins. So one thing I like to do is make sure that everything is locked, secured, it's not going to come loose. And we are going to take these pins and basically just make little marks down here on the bottom on the tracks, because we're going to have to drill out these holes. So while it's closed, just take the pins and just kind of make little marks right there. Do the top. And that's going to make little marks in the track, and we're going to take a drill bit and drill those out. Good. Now we're going to unlock these and then do the same thing for when these are in the closed position. So we're going to close these back. And what I like to do is put some pressure on the stack. So if you put some pressure on that, that way it makes it nice and tight. And we're going to take our pins, do the same thing on both sides. We'll do that side here in a sec. But now we have the two little marks on the tracks where the pins were going. We got one right here and one right here. They will be a little bit offset, so if you notice that this hole is further back towards the window than this hole is, that's just how the tracks overlap when they go together. And what we like to use is just a conical step bit. You can also use a drill bit if you need to. But we're going to come in here and drill out these holes. the other one real quick. Okay. So we would then proceed to drill out the holes on the top and the ones on the side, but just to make this video a little bit shorter, I'm going to go and hold these back to the center. Lock the shutter, and then you'll see that your pinholes, or the drop pins, go right into these holes that were drilled out. And then once the top ones are drilled out, those will lock in, and then the same thing for the when they're in the open position. So that's basically all of the steps that are needed to install our accordion shutters. If you have any other questions on this, you can give us a call at 386-227-6295 or check us out at smartguardshutters.com. Thank you. One last thing I forgot to mention is it's probably a good idea to go ahead and lubricate these now. We use a storm shutter lubricant. We do sell this at our office, but while they're closed, I'll just show you where we're going to spray. Is in these little pivot points at the top. Let the spray run down. Same thing there. And those little and then once that's sprayed, we'll go ahead and unlock it and then open and close it a few times just to make sure that that lubricant gets mixed in. Do this side. That's it. So now that it's lubricated, we'll go ahead and close these back. Put our pins into the outside position. Take our key out. And that completes the accordion install.